Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly market view for Monday, the 17th of November, 2025 to Friday, the 21st of November, 2025. My name is Vishal. Let's get started. All right, let's start with the Nifty analysis and let's decode the Nifty for the coming week. So this is the monthly chart of the Nifty, and the key level on the monthly is 24,730, 24,341, which is a key level of demand. If we move on to the weekly chart, we have this pro gap level, 26,061 to 26,279. And we also have a new level of demand now on the weekly chart, which is 25,691 to 25,314. If we go on to the daily chart, we had a nice bounce from this rally-based rally level of demand, and price did eventually push to the upside. Now, we are in a consolidation within this area. We also have a daily level of supply at 26,171 to 26,288. And it seems like the market is heading towards the daily supply and maybe even go ahead and remove that daily supply level. But it will still face a little bit of resistance at this current level, which is just going to plot a horizontal line over here, which is approximately at 26,050. Also, we are heading closer to the round number. But we see this nice gap level at the bottom now. What is interesting is that these gaps have already been filled on the Bank Nifty and the other indices except for the Nifty. So it'll be interesting to see whether Nifty will indeed come to fill this gap or will continue its move to the upside. Let's move on to the next index. We have Bank Nifty. Let's start off with the monthly chart. So on the monthly, we have a key level of demand, which is fresh, 54,646 to 53,481. On the weekly chart, we have a new level of demand, rally-based rally, 57,859 to 57,159. And it'll be interesting to see if the price pulls back, whether we get a trend continuation. And if you look at the daily chart, we already are seeing that potential trend continuation on the daily chart. So taking this into consideration, if we have the weekly support of this level around the same area, then it's more likely that the price will continue to move up further on the Bank Nifty and will indeed print new highs. Let's move on to the next index. We have the Nifty Midcap Select. So let's start off first with the monthly chart. So key level of demand on Midcap, 12,609 to 12,426 on the monthly. If you go on to the weekly chart, we have a level on top of level. We have a nice fresh level of demand, 13,484 to 13,244. And then we have 13,216 to 13,017 level on top of level. If we move on to the daily chart, we have a gap up today. So we do have this level also can be called as a level of demand, 13,863 to 13,785. But if you ask me the quality of the level, then this is a far better quality. 13,561 to 13,442 will be a key level of demand on Midcap Nifty. Let's move on to Nifty Financial Services now. Let's start off with the monthly chart. So on the monthly, we have 26,000 levels to 25,471. This is going to be a key level of demand on the Nifty Financial Services. We don't see a very clean level of demand close to current market price on the Nifty Financial Services on the weekly chart, but we do have this level, 26,431 to 25,905. And if we move on to the daily chart, we have this new level, 27,278 to 27,170. And price has already touched the below level here, which is this level of demand. Let's move on to the USDINR now. And let us see what do we see on the monthly chart of USDINR. So on the monthly chart, we are still holding on to this rally-based rally. Price came in, went in a little deeper inside the zone, and price started moving up. If we move on to the weekly chart, we have a new level of demand now, drop-based rally, 87,977 to 87,641, and then you have 87.5901 to 86.90. If you go on to the daily chart, we are still hovering around this supply zone, 88.68 to 88.93. And it'll be interesting to see whether the USD-INR holds or breaks this level. But we see a very, very good level of demand at around 88.28 to 88.14. And then we have the next level, which is just below that at around 88 to 87.62 on the USD-INR. Let's move on to the India VIX, and let's first start with the monthly chart. So on the monthly chart, We don't have any key levels of demand and supply yet, but on the weekly chart, we have this 14.64 to 16.32. This is a key level of India VIX. And then bottom, we have 10.07 to 9.62. This is going to be acting as a key level of demand. If we go on to the daily chart, we have been seeing how this supply level from the past so many days has been playing out. And you can see 12.19 to 13.17 is still holding, and 10.29 to 9.57 is going to act as a clear support for the India VIX. We do have an excellent level of supply at around 13.63 to 14.55, but that is a little far away from the current market price. Let's now move on to the world of commodities. Let's start with gold. So on gold, monthly chart is still very, very strong and in an uptrend. If we go on to the weekly chart, we have these new levels of demand on the weekly chart, 1,15,774 to 1,14,097, and then 1,10,533 to 1,08,786. If we move on to the daily chart, we are now retracing from a level of supply, and the indications are that if in case this level of demand also breaks 1,21,103 to 1,19,114, then in many days we are going to be having for the first time a lower high printed on gold, which will probably indicate a little bit of bearishness. But if you look at the overall trend of gold, I would say that any kind of dip or any kind of correction will lead to some more buying. So we could see this demand zone probably failing. But if in case price does come into this level of demand, then we will see a potential level of bounce and a trend continuation, and maybe gold printing new highs as well. Let's move on to silver now. If you look at the monthly chart to begin with, so nothing clear on the monthly chart, but we do have a level of demand on monthly from 1,16,421 to 1,05,544. If you go on to the weekly chart, nice level of demand located at 1,30,473 to 1,23,579. And if you go on to the daily chart, a very, very similar picture, just like gold, we have now printed a lower high on silver, but we are also in this level of demand. So in case if this level of demand breaks, or eventually even this level breaks, then we will be more or less heading in a potential move to the downside on silver. But by the looks of it, by the way the bullions are heading, seems like market is or will most likely take support at this level of demand, 1,47,613 to 1,39,345. Let's see how silver shapes up for the coming week. Let's move on to crude oil now. So let's start off with the monthly chart on crude oil. So if you look at the monthly chart on crude oil, pretty much the levels of supply and demand are completely fixed on the chart. There is no change. If we move on to the weekly chart, the weekly level of demand is holding. We have an engulfing candle within the weekly level of demand, indicating that price might have the tendency to further push to the upside. If we look at the daily chart, we are still seeing a lot of consolidation. So there is a possibility that we might come and fill this gap at the bottom first before resuming the trend to the upside. 5073 to 4953 will be one of the key levels of demand on crude oil. And then if this level of demand does not hold, then it's more likely that 4885 to 4726 will be a key level of demand on crude oil. The fresh supply now on crude oil is located at 5763 to 5912. And yeah, these are the key levels on crude oil. Let's move on to copper now. Let's start off with the monthly chart on copper. So on the monthly chart, key level of demand 909 to 860. If we move on to the weekly chart, 920 to 895. And if we move on to the daily chart, pretty much these are the key levels which are still intact on copper. All right, so copper is consolidating. There is a possibility that we might see a little bit of a range over here. If we just connect this, and yeah, we might just see that this is just becoming narrow and narrow, and eventually we might have a dip to the downside, to say so, more like a flag pattern. Let's see whether that happens on copper. Let's look at natural gas. If you look at natural gas now, if you look at the monthly chart, we have a very, very strong bounce, and this was covered last week itself. 244 to 185, and then the clean supply level at 516 to 622 on natural gas. If we move on to the weekly chart, the level of supply is a little further away, 502 to 584, and level of demand is also far away, 287 to 255. If we move on to the daily chart, what we have done is that now we are in a key level of supply, and we've started seeing a little bit of a reaction from this level. We also do have this level of demand here, which will be keenly watched in the coming days. And in case of natural gas, because of the higher time frame supply, if it starts correcting, then it's going to be giving you a pretty good correction, and at least would come towards these levels of 341 to 332 in the days to come. All right. This week, we are going to be analyzing a sector, and I have picked up NiftyPSUBank because in the comments last time, there was a comment saying that if you can cover one or two stocks based on supply and demand, it would really help us. So this week, I'm going to be covering two stocks from the NiftyPSUBank sector. So to begin with, let's plot the demand zone on the monthly chart, 7141 to 6717 on the PSUBank sector chart. And then we have this very good looking fresh level of demand, 7832 to 7492. And then if you move on to the daily chart, we have this consolidation and this breakout to the upside. So any kind of retest, it'll be more like resistance becoming support, and market might move to the upside. But in case if this consolidation fails, then we have another very nice looking level of demand on the PSUBank sector at around 8114 to 7975. Now let us see how the sector levels actually transpire onto the stock levels. So let me first open the Bankofbaroda chart, and you will see that the sector levels are more or less aligned with the stock level. So this is the monthly chart of Bankofbaroda, 237 to 231 closest level of demand, 267, 257, and 254, 247. Again, good levels of demand. And if you look at the daily chart, again, 276, 271, 268, 264. So more or less, these levels are lining up with the higher time frame levels if you go to see. And the sector is a pretty strong sector. So in case if the price does pull back to these levels, then we might see a little bit of a trend continuation. Now, what generally happens a lot of time is that majority people who follow sector analysis, and because the sector is making all-time high, they start thinking that all the stocks within that sector will also start printing all-time highs. And this is where things tend to go a little wrong, because we have to look at the stock individually. Yes, we could compare it with the sector, but if the stock has already moved and moved up very strongly and is at a key level of supply, that is not a good idea to engage into that stock. So to begin with, we are going to start with Bank India. Bank India is a demand zone is at 117 to 108 on the monthly chart. If you look at the weekly chart now, Bank India has hit a weekly level of supply, which is 149.8 to 157. And it's a pretty strong area of supply because there's a follow through, there's a gap down, and the market has printed a low. So what we could see in the coming days or in the coming weeks is that in case if the PSU banks starts to correct for some reason, Bank India will even correct faster because it's already hit a level of supply. Now, where do we think that probably Bank India might resume the trend and continue to move to the upside? So we are in a supply, and we see this shooting star, or you can call it whatever candlestick pattern that you want to call it. But yeah, it looks like a bearish candlestick pattern. I think first the gap will be a key area. But in case if the candle closes like the way it is closing, then we might see Bank India heading a little bit downwards, also because it is in a supply level, and there is eventually a profit booking that will come on Bank India. So although the sector, PSU Bank is a strong sector, supply and demand indicates or tells us that Bank India is probably not a good candidate for any long trades based on the theory. All right, so this is pretty much from me for this week. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you do like our analysis, hit the like button and hit the subscription button to get regular updates. And if you do have any valuable comments with respect to this video or our other videos, feel free to mention in the comment section. Have a lovely trading week, everyone. See you all next week. Bye-bye.
This should not be treated as a recommendation. Please conduct your own analysis or consult a financial advisor before investing.